In the days after Nancy's death, Sid was racked with guilt over what he might have done and sliding into a deep depression.
O.J. Simpson. This former football star and successful actor was at the centre of perhaps the most controversial and publicised trial of the 20th century.
From the beginning, it is referred to as the trial of the century. The people's case? O.J. Simpson killed his ex-wife Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. The timeline works. The evidence is clear. The defense? Simpson has been framed.
When Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were found dead in June 1994, Brown's ex-husband, O.J. Simpson, was accused of being responsible. The accusation was followed by a court case that had a ton of TV coverage. During the trial, the defense team introduced a number of arguments for his innocence. His legal team ultimately prevailed when a verdict of not guilty was reached.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
But Simpson was later found liable for the deaths in a civil trial and was ordered to pay damages to the tune of $33.5 million. Scott Hall. WWE star Scott Hall, who you may recognise by his ring name Razor Ramon, was a very successful wrestler who competed professionally for more than 30 years. In 1983, before his career took off, Hall was charged with second-degree murder for the death of a man in Orlando, Florida. Hall had gotten into a fight outside of a nightclub and ended up shooting the man with his own gun.
Like, I drilled him, he went down and his shirt went up and he was reaching for the gun, so I reached for it too.
Although that could easily have ended his career before it even started, the burgeoning wrestler insisted that he'd acted in self-defense. After an investigation was carried out, the charges were dropped. Interviews with Hall would later suggest that the memory of this dark moment stuck with him throughout his life.
A guy's dead, and I'm the reason, and this is bad.
Don King. With his crazy hair and flamboyant personality, King is one of the most famous boxing promoters ever. Unfortunately, aside from alleged organised crime connections and various litigation cases against him, he was found responsible for the deaths of at least 2 people in court.
Is it possible for a man convicted of a felony to get a license to promote boxing exhibitions?
Yes, it is, only in America. You know, I think America's just a great country.
The first was Hillary Brown, whom King shot in a justifiable homicide in 1954 after Brown tried to steal money from one of his gambling dens. 13 years later, Sam Garrett, a former employee of King who owed him money, was beaten to death, and King was found guilty.
I had a fist fight in the ghetto, you know, where others have many, many fights in the ghetto and nothing happens. I had a fight and the guy died.
He spent 4 years in prison on a non-negligent manslaughter charge and has since been pardoned for the crime. Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez was an NFL star who played tight end for the New England Patriots. But his career came to a halt less than a year after renewing his contract with the team.
In the car is a New England Patriots football player who may soon become a murder suspect.
In 2013, police discovered that Hernandez's friend, Odin Lloyd, died from gunshot injuries. Since the deceased man was found close to the tight end's house, authorities quickly brought him in for questioning. The ensuing trial ended in Hernandez being found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
Just hard to believe, we say it 1,000 times, but hard to believe a guy in this position could be involved in something like this.
While he was also tried for the killing of 2 other men, Daniel De Abreu and Safiro Furtado. He was acquitted of their murders. In 2017, Hernandez took his own life in his prison cell. William S. Burroughs.
A writer can profit from things that may be just unpleasant or boring to someone else.
Before he became a world-renowned writer, William S. Burroughs lived with a woman named Joan Vollmer after he was discharged from the US Army. The two eventually fled to Mexico to evade drug charges brought against the author. Both were at a party one night when Burroughs reportedly took out a gun and insisted he could shoot a glass that was atop Vollmer's head.
I guess it's about time for our William Tell routine.
But the writer tragically missed and ended up fatally wounding her. Before facing trial, Burroughs fled back to the US. In his absence, he was found guilty and handed a 2-year suspended sentence. Robert Blake. Blake was famous for his film and TV roles, notably and perhaps ironically, including his portrayal of a real-life killer in 1967's In Cold Blood. Blake married Bonnie Lee Bakley in 1999, a woman notorious for scamming older men for their money. 2 years later, she was found dead in a car from a gunshot.
He suspected Blake from the very beginning.
We have not ruled anyone out as a suspect in this case.
They thought it highly likely that he had either shot his wife himself or hired someone to shoot her.
Blake was arrested and charged the following year. Although several witnesses claimed he tried to hire them to kill her, he was acquitted in the criminal case.
The murder weapon was not the gun that Blake was carrying on the night of the killing, and they could not trace the gun that was used back to Blake. But 2 retired stuntmen had come forward and said that Blake had tried to hire them to kill his wife.
But Blake was found liable for his wife's wrongful death in a civil suit and was ordered to pay $30 million. Snoop Dogg. In 1993, Snoop Dogg was arrested for his involvement in the murder of Philip Waldemariam. The two had plenty of bad blood prior to the incident. On one fateful day, Waldemariam allegedly threatened the musician before his bodyguard, McKinley Lee, fired at the attacker. Since Snoop Dogg was reportedly driving the car when Lee fired the fatal shot, he was considered an accomplice to the crime and charged with first-degree murder. The two hired notable celebrity lawyer Johnny Cochran to help defend them. The trial, which lasted about 4 months, ended in both Snoop and Lee being acquitted of the murder.
We, the jury in above entitled action, find the defendant, Calvin Burroughs, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree.
Phil Spector. Ranked as one of Rolling Stone's greatest artists of all time, and acclaimed for his roles as a producer, songwriter, and music pioneer, Spector was a giant in the industry, which is why many were shocked when a woman turned up dead in Spector's California home in 2003.
After he had been out of the music spotlight for years, damaged by drug abuse and his own eccentric reputation, he was suddenly back in the headlines.
The woman was actress Lana Clarkson, and although he was quoted as saying that he thought he had killed her, he later claimed that she accidentally took her own life because she had kissed the gun. Regardless, the eccentric celebrity was tried twice in relation to Clarkson's death and was ultimately convicted of second-degree murder in 2009.
His legacy will forever be that of a convicted murderer who happened to write songs.
Oscar Pistorius. This South African runner first made it to the news as a gold medal-winning Paralympian. He would later make history as the first runner with an amputation to participate in an Olympic track heat. Although Pistorius was initially seen as an inspiration, everything changed in February 2013. On February 14th, he shot and killed his girlfriend, Reva Steenkamp, at his home in South Africa. He claimed that he thought she was a home invader.
And recapping our breaking news story, Oscar Pistorius suspected of killing his girlfriend. He thought she was a burglar.
Although Pistorius was found not guilty of the murder, he was found guilty of culpable homicide. After sitting in on multiple sentencing hearings and going to prison, it was reported that he'd be eligible for parole in 2023.
Everyone has an image of Oscar Pistorius, this athlete taking gold at the Paralympics. And then we got this view of this quite pathetic, sobbing person.
Sid Vicious. Famous for his rebellious lifestyle and his musical career with the Sex Pistols, Vicious was also well known for his relationship with the equally unruly Nancy Spungen. Their tumultuous love affair was marked by physical and emotional torment. On October 12, 1978, Vicious woke to find Spungen dead in the bathroom of their suite in New York's Chelsea Hotel.
But has no recollection of the attack. He'd been out of his mind on drugs, but all he remembers is that when he woke up, Nancy was dead.
Although it's unknown whether her death was accidental, the unintentional result of a fight, or deliberate murder, Vicious was released on bail.
In the days after Nancy's death, Sid was racked with guilt over what he might have done and sliding into a deep depression.
The incident deeply affected the musician and reportedly led him to committing self-destructive acts. He would later pass away less than a year later. Which of these entries took you the most by surprise? Let us know in the comments.
And he kept saying, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to do it.